Hi everyone, Mike here, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I was talking to a good friend of mine recently, and she pointed out that my last 20 or so videos have certainly hit a very specific structure, and she inspired me to think about some other ways that I might be able to deliver some content on my channel, and here we are. I'm going to be doing a live stream today, and you are almost certainly watching a recording of this because since it is my first live stream on the channel, I kind of gave like no notice that I was doing it. Just a quick tweet like 30 minutes before the start, and this is really just an experiment for me. So I'd greatly appreciate whether you are watching live or if you are watching in the future, drop some comments down below, some feedback. Huge fan of feedback and iterating over time with what I'm doing. So if you like this type of live streaming content or the way I'm going about this video, I would love to hear what you have to say. So that being said, I have used Ecamm Live for the past 2 years, basically for every remote teaching experience that I've done, and all of my meetings during the pandemic. So I'm very familiar with Ecamm Live and most of its video features, but I believe also if you are here, you're attending and you drop some comments in, that'll be new for me. I'll be experimenting and trying out a new piece of technology or a new piece of a technology that I know. So I greatly appreciate you dropping some comments in the chat so that I can play around with that feature as well. But anyway, the point of today's video, the content that I want to share with you is as I'm reflecting over Thanksgiving 2021, so my wife and I have been hosting, we're the cooks in our extended family. We've been hosting Thanksgiving for maybe the past 10 years, and as I'm going over this Thanksgiving this year, something I've been wanting to do for a while, and every Thanksgiving I'm like, oh, I should do that, but this year I'm actually going to do it, is to create a checklist. You would think that after 10 years of hosting a Thanksgiving event, and for those of you outside of the United States, or even inside of the United States in some areas, our Thanksgiving is it's a big ordeal, right? It's a lot of people, a lot of stuff goes into a afternoon of hosting our family. So I've been wanting for a while to produce a checklist, to create a checklist to help me do all the preparations that need to happen. Now, today I'll be making version 1.0 of this checklist. And it's going to be focused on the things I specifically need to do, not the things my wife is doing or anything else that has to happen from our family. It's just going to be the things that I am directly responsible for Thanksgiving, which really, as it turns out, is purchasing alcohol and deep frying our turkeys, plural, 2 of them. So that's what I'm going to be talking about in this checklist as I go through this live stream today, are the things that I do to prepare our family for Thanksgiving. And you don't have to host Thanksgiving. You don't have to fry turkeys or any of that type of stuff to get some value out of this content, because really what I'm going to be doing is thinking about and reviewing a process that I do once a year and thinking about it and putting some structure into that process so that I can do better next year. So you don't have to host Thanksgiving in order to have a similar type of yearly or regular repeating process. And if you have a process that you do on a regular basis that's complex and has lots of things going on, I would encourage you to watch the rest of this video, because again, I'm talking about Thanksgiving and hosting Thanksgiving dinner, but anything that you do on a regular basis could probably benefit from a checklist. And so that's what the real core of what I'm talking about here today is going to be. So the first thing we're going to jump into is drafts. So I do my content creation, written content creation, checklists, and all that type of stuff happen in drafts. So as you can see, I have a workspace in drafts for OmniFocus templates. So this is where I store them. This is where I make them, and then use them, and then update. The drafts holds on to my OmniFocus checklist. So I have several, but today I'm going to make a new one, and that's going to be for Thanksgiving. So the first thing that I'm going to do is come down here to the bottom where the syntax highlighting is, and I'm going to take that from Markdown, which is my usual favorite, and I'm just going to switch that to TaskPaper. You don't really have to do that. I'm sure actually a couple of these templates that are over here are actually Markdown, but it still works when you copy and paste it into OmniFocus. But the syntax highlighting is just going to change how the formatting and colors look of the template that I'm going to create. So I'm just going to make sure I switch that to TaskPaper. And then if you're not familiar with TaskPaper, it is super handy to, and I guess maybe it's just because I like using drafts for this and I like using OmniFocus and using them together. The TaskPaper format is a great intermediary. It's a great way to move information from one place to the other when you're talking about tasks and plain text. So it's perfect. But to write it, I have over here on the right the OF TaskPaper action group. So that's actually from the always excellent Rosemary Orchard, and you can download this on the drafts action directory. And it's like one of the most downloaded things on the directory. So this is going to come in handy, but because it's all plain text, you can do it from memory once you get used to it. But I'll show you this and how that can help some things. So I'm just going to start by kind of getting the ideas out of my head, the different things that I need to think about for Thanksgiving. It might not be perfectly ordered, and then I can always just go back and order things around. So first things first is that I am going to start with a dash and a space. And then when I do that, that is some TaskPaper formatting right there. So when that hyphen became blue and bigger, if you didn't see that happen, I'll do it again. So I'm going to hit the dash, and it's nothing right now, but when I hit a dash and a space, that is an action in TaskPaper formatting, so that's why it changed, and now I can actually click on it and I could theoretically mark something complete. You could run a whole system based off of just TaskPaper in drafts. You don't need to move things over to OmniFocus, but I'd like to, so I'm not going to use that feature of OmniFocus, or sorry, of TaskPaper and using TaskPaper in drafts. I'm just using it as a way to write and organize my thoughts instead of having to do all of that work in OmniFocus. So this top level can just be a task, or if I'm going to do indentations, which I'm going to, this will be the name of my project. So I'm going to call it Host Thanksgiving. Also, during this live stream, you will find out that I am a horrible speller, but the new Grammarly desktop feature, which you can't see because I'm just showing you my drafts screen, but it's a little overlay, a little circle overlay that's hovering right over drafts, is awesome. It's just been out for just a week or two, but it has been incredible. Anyway, Host Thanksgiving is going to be the name of the project, and we'll come back and add a bunch of metadata later, but I'll just go ahead and start by getting, again, the ideas out of my head. So I want to think about the things that I need to do to prepare for Thanksgiving for my family, to be able to come over to the house and for us to provide a lovely dinner for them. And again, my specific areas of expertise related to Thanksgiving are buying alcohol and frying the turkeys, and sometimes making desserts. But I'm just going to focus on buying the alcohol and preparing and frying the turkeys. So a lot of that stuff has to happen days or weeks in advance ahead of the day of Thanksgiving. So I'm going to put together a shopping list, and I'm going to call it shopping. And because of how I use OmniFocus and because of the views that I use, a lot of times I won't just put shopping list here because that might show up in my system without the project context easily visible. So I'll call this, instead of calling this shopping list, I'll call this Thanksgiving shopping list. And I'm going to go ahead and indent that because that is a part of hosting Thanksgiving. And then I'm going to do another indentation because the Thanksgiving shopping list has its own items that are part of it. So I'm just going to bump those over. And it's basically just an outline format. And this is going to translate into OmniFocus as projects, action groups, and actions, and however many levels of that deep you want to do. But that's what you're seeing here right now is the host Thanksgiving it will eventually be an OmniFocus project. Thanksgiving shopping list is going to be an action group. So the things that I need to buy two, I'm going to write this out, two 13 to 15 pound turkeys. And I am a fan of title casing like action items, not turkeys. So I'm going to make that spaced out, but I wrote out the word two so it wouldn't be about two different groups of numbers next to each other. So two 13 to 15 pound turkeys. So I need to buy those. I brine my turkeys. So I make like a salt water solution that I soak my turkeys in. So inject some chemistry and science into cooking, which is always fun. So for that, I need, it turns out being 2 pounds of kosher salt, 2 pounds of dark brown sugar, and what ends up being 10 pounds of ice. I didn't title case all those things, but I have set up a little Keyboard Maestro macro that will help me with that. So if I go caps lock T, and I have a little macro window that pops up when that happens, and I want to make it title case. And it accidentally messed up that indentation, but that's fine. We can bump that right back over. So that's for the turkeys. I need 2 turkeys. I need kosher salt, dark brown sugar, and ice for the brine. But also part of the Thanksgiving shopping list for me is going to be 1 case. We always, not exclamation point, 1 case of, and there's a beer from a brewery in Texas that we really like for the holidays. Shiner is the name of the brewery, and their beer is Cheer. It's their holiday brewery, or holiday release, so get a case of that. And then, I forgot, for the turkeys, let me bounce back up so I can put this next to the turkeys. Stuff is 2 aluminum turkey trays. Two aluminum turkey trays. So I can caps lock those things just because that's my brain, not needed for any other reason. So I think that's everything that I need to buy. I'm just going to think about this again. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this after Thanksgiving, by the way. I always like to do these things right after an event has happened since it's fresh in my mind. And later in this checklist, I will put in there a specific action item to reflect on and update my my checklist. So I think, let's look at that. So I need the 2 turkeys. I need the stuff for the brine. The turkey trays are for after the turkeys are done, for me to take those turkeys, and then a case of beer. And that should be everything that I need to do there. That's all the stuff I need to buy. So perfect. So that is shopping, but I have some preparations that I need to do. So that's not part of the shopping list. So as you just saw, I made a new item, but then bumped it over so it's at the same depth as the Thanksgiving shopping list. So prepare turkeys. So to prepare the turkeys, that means the turkeys we buy are typically frozen, so I have to thaw them, and then I have to brine them. So I've got to thaw them and brine. So those are the 2 items that come in the preparation phase. I got to thaw the turkeys, and that takes a long time, usually almost like a week to thaw the turkeys, and then the brining takes overnight. But we'll come back and put dates in here and all that stuff in a little bit. For right now, I'm just looking at the action items. So I need to thaw the turkeys, and I need to brine the turkeys. Oh, and I also need to put some beer in the fridge. Yeah, I think that's all the stuff that I need to prepare for ahead of time. And then oh, you know what? That is not. So this is one of the reasons, again, that I like doing this in drafts, is because when I make a mistake and need to reorder and move things around, it's just a lot easier to do it in drafts for me, rather than to go back to OmniFocus and then have to like drag things up and down and adjust like the order of something. It's easier to be sloppy in drafts than it is to be in OmniFocus. So the other thing I need to buy is a propane tank, because the fryer uses propane. So propane tank, and also the oil for frying the turkey. I forgot about that. So that takes about 5 gallons of peanut oil. Now do I have everything? I have the stuff to eat, I have the stuff to drink, and then I have the stuff to cook. So now I think I've done everything. I might come back. So preparing the turkeys is thawing, brining, and putting beer in the fridge. Putting beer in the fridge, I guess, prepares the turkeys, because I drink some beer while I fry the turkey. But prepare turkeys, I'll put that in there. That's fine. And then, so the day of, I'll just call that cook turkeys. So that'll be the stuff that happens the day of Thanksgiving. And the first thing is to rinse off the turkey. Rinse off the turkey, and then I need to set up the frying space. And then I need to set up the frying area. So a couple items to put in there so I don't forget. So this is another item inside that I'm going to need. So I need the fire extinguisher. I need the frying thermometer. I was just talking a big game about the about the Grammarly desktop, but I don't think that's definitely not correct. Again, horrible speller, and I rely on the spelling to work for me, spell check to work for me, but we'll come back to that. So I need the frying thermometer. And then what else do I need? Oh, I'm going to need some aluminum foil. going to need some beer to come down to the frying area with me. I'm going to need chair. The turkey lifter, which is a little metal hook to pull the turkey out of the oil. Yeah, so I think that's all I need for the frying area. Yeah, and that should be good. And again, this is version 1.0, and I might come back during the making of this and add something else if I forget about it. But next year there'll be an idea there'll be an action item in here for me to update this. But let's come back to that. For right now, I'm going to shift over to the what's important to me, which are the dates. So that's the next thing I need to do here. So this is going to be due. So this action item over here, this action group over here, if I put the cursor here and then double click on the word due, this will insert the TaskPaper formatting for dates, for due dates. So this is how I can put in and specify due dates. So Thanksgiving is going to be due next year, and I did a little bit, this is the only preparation research that I did, is going to be due on November 24th, 2022. Now I could type that in here, but actually what I want to do is actually use a variable here, because I don't want to have to update this checklist every year. I'm going to use OmniFocus in a little bit. I'm going to use OmniFocus to do a bunch of calculations, but Keyboard Maestro is actually going to fit this date in here for me. So what I really want to do in drafts is just update the checklist, like update action items and things like that, but I'm not going to go through and do all the calculations in drafts. Drafts is for holding the information. So because of Keyboard Maestro, I usually do my variables starting with a percentage sign, and then so I'm going to call this variable T for Thanksgiving or turkey day. I'll do that lowercase. T day. So T day is going to be Thanksgiving, and that's going to be the variable, and so that's going to come in later from Keyboard Maestro. Now I'm going to put in a defer date, because I don't really want to think about hosting Thanksgiving until November, or X number of weeks, we'll say 3 weeks before Thanksgiving itself. I don't need to be thinking, I don't have to have OmniFocus showing me tasks as available, when I'm worried about Halloween or any other events. So I'm going to put a defer date in here as well. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to double click on this, and that's going to drop in at defer, open and close parentheses. So in there, I can type, I forgot to close my variable over here. It's important. So starting and ending, I need parentheses around T day. So now I'm going to do an open parentheses, T day, close parentheses, and then I'm going to do a space and then a minus, because I want to go back in time from Thanksgiving. I'm going to do 3W for 3 weeks. So this is going to be due on Thanksgiving Day, and it's going to be become available. This project is going to become available 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. So that's going to give me plenty of time to buy all the things I need to buy on here and thaw my turkeys and all that stuff. So the event, this project, has these guiding due dates on there. So because this is also kind of a chronological checklist, so I have things I need to buy, I have things I need to, then after I buy those things, I can prepare the turkeys, and then I'll cook the turkeys and all that stuff. Also over here, what I have is an option for parallel. So this is not going to be a parallel project because I need to buy the stuff before I can do stuff with it. I can double click on parallel, and I get the option to choose if it is going to be a parallel task or not. So this is a false. So that means it's going to be a sequential project when I put it in there, and that's just going to make sure that I don't see things I can't do. And then I'll also put in here auto done and say true. Because when I finish the last task, I want the project to go away as well, the hosting Thanksgiving project to disappear. I don't want to have to then click off the project as well. So I'm not going to use a repeat method, even though Thanksgiving comes every year. It comes like on the third Thursday after the first Monday or whatever. I don't know exactly what it is. I'm not going to have the repeating method in here. I'll use Keyboard Maestro to do the repeating process for me. And I think that's everything I want to do as far as time and options related. We'll come back to tags because I am a user of tags, so we'll come back to tags in a moment. So the shopping list, I'm going to say the shopping list, really I'm only going to give it a defer date because most of these things could be purchased the day up to the day before or day of Thanksgiving. So I'm just going to make this available, and I'm going to have to rewrite all this, so I'll just copy and paste that defer date down here. So the defer date will be 3 weeks. So this is going to become available the same day that the project becomes available. Now, I don't have to do that. I could remove that, and because it doesn't have a defer date, it'll just inherit the defer date of the project. But I might want to change that, so I'm going to put it in there so it's easy for me to change in the future. But we are going to put a due date on here for the turkeys because they are going to need to be thawed, and if they're not thawed, that's where you can like blow up your house with frying a turkey. Nothing like some life or death experiences to make the holidays fun. So I am going to put a due date in here because I need to buy the turkeys and thaw them so that then I can brine them the day before Thanksgiving. So I can't be a week because it usually takes about a week for the turkeys to thaw, especially in my refrigerator in the garage, which is pretty cold. So I'm going to actually say minus, and this is going to be 8 days. So D for days. So this, I need to buy the turkeys on that date. If I don't, because of how I treat due dates, if I don't buy those turkeys on that day, a negative repercussion happens, a bad thing happens, which is what due dates are for me. So this specific item will have a due date, but the overall shopping list will not. But I could also say on here, well, basically everything else will be due the day before Thanksgiving. So this will have its own special due date, but the Thanksgiving shopping list needs to be completed the day before Thanksgiving. Again, it'll be available. I'll see it in my list, but it's not going to be due until the day before because I need most of this stuff the day before Thanksgiving. So, and because these things are sub-items underneath of this shopping list, they will inherit, unless they have their own specific day, they will inherit the information from up top. So let me think about thawing turkeys or preparing the turkeys. So I need to thaw the turkeys. I'm going to use that same date because in theory, I might buy the turkeys 3 weeks before and I can check that item off the list, but then I need to start thawing the turkeys, and that is going to be due 8 days before. I'm going to brine the turkeys, and that's going to be due 1 day before Thanksgiving. And put beer in the fridge. I could do that the day of if I wanted to. So cooking the turkeys, that is going to be due the day of. And everything below that will inherit that same list. So this is going to be just a checklist on my phone to make sure that all that stuff gets taken care of. Now, I could, again, go through, if I wanted to, I could go through and complete or copy and paste items onto each of these individual actions, but I've just put them on the things that have a specific day. Otherwise, they will inherit their parent. So everything under cooked turkeys will be due the day of cooking. So I don't have to update it all the time. If I decide to, change something or move something around, it's just easier that way. Now, I do want to put in on these other items. So I have the whole project completing on time, but I forgot I would also like to put auto done as true for Thanksgiving shopping. So the Thanksgiving shopping list is done when all of its sub-items are done. So I'll put in auto done and true, or I could just copy and paste this text. Preparing the turkeys, once all that stuff's done, that will be checked off. And cooking the turkeys, once all that stuff is done, that'll be checked off. And since this has a sub-item in there, that one can get an auto done as well. So most of the stuff is buying, thawing the turkeys, brining the turkeys. Really, it takes a day to do it, but it takes about 15 minutes of my time to do. So a lot of times I like to have items in there with estimations as well. So I could do that with an estimate. I double click that and it just drops in the same text. And this is just plain text. I could type this myself if I wanted to, but since it's right here and it's going to get it right every time, I'll just often use that. So this takes about 15 minutes. And rinsing the turkey, and then it has to rest or come to room temperature, so it takes about 30 minutes before that's ready. Setting up the frying area, that's just a checklist that's done when it's done. And the other thing that I do is I like tags. So I can put tags in here. And then, so hosting Thanksgiving is a home task. So these are things from my personal OmniFocus. So that'll be home. This is a high impact, high energy project. And I can put other information in there as I see fit. For each of the different items, but I just wanted to show the tags process there as well. So let me, before I forget, I told you that stuff is Thanksgiving related, but I am also going to want to put some project management stuff in here. So the second to last item is going to be update Thanksgiving dinner checklist in drafts. And I also should put in here, because I haven't done it yet, my tags for this draft as OmniFocus and template, and this is TaskPaper, to make sure that it shows up in here. So it's in my list. So I'm going to right click on this and copy a link, and now I'm going to show you a note feature. So I can, without the prefix, I can put, I bump over using the tab feature, and I bump over underneath of the task, and I'll paste in the link to the draft. Because even though I'm in drafts right now, I'm going to be interacting with this in OmniFocus. So this task in OmniFocus will have in its notes a link that will open this draft. So then I can go through and update it next year. So I want to do that. I want to update the Thanksgiving dinner checklist in drafts. I don't want to do that on, actually I'm going to make it a defer task because there's not a negative repercussion if I don't do it. I'm going to make that something I want to do, not on Thanksgiving Day and not 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. I'm actually going to do that plus 1 day. So the day after Thanksgiving, once everything's all done and cleaned up, I want to have this checklist right underneath of my thumb on any device that I'm on, so that I can open this draft and update it. And then I'm also going to want to run automation for next Thanksgiving. Again, as I said at the beginning, if you've joined the session, if you've joined this live stream later, I said at the beginning, I'm a horrible speller, but then I talked a big game about the new Grammarly desktop, but it is doing me dirty right now during this live stream. So maybe there's something weird because of my live streaming software is causing it to not work the way it's supposed to. But so I'll come back and off air and make sure that all my spelling is correct. But that's kind of the idea, is that I want my a bunch of things to happen. I want some things to happen weeks in advance or many days in advance of Thanksgiving. I want some things to happen on Thanksgiving. I want to plan a certain amount of time for some things, and I want to make sure that I don't forget some of my essential gear for cooking here. And then at the end of my process, the next day, the day after Thanksgiving, I want to prepare for Thanksgiving, and in this case 2023, or whatever the next Thanksgiving will be for me. So updating that checklist and then running the automation. Now there's probably some stuff that I've forgotten in here, and probably again off air I might go through and check to make sure that it's all correct. But at this point I've spent 30-ish minutes kind of making my checklist. I'll never spend that much time on it again because I can come back and update it. So now in the future it'll probably be a 5-minute process, 6-7 minutes maybe max. Or if I forgot a complete thing, I can come back and cleaning up. I realize I don't have a cleaning up process on here, which I probably should put a couple things on there, but I'm not going to do that on air right now because I need to jump into the next part. So let me talk to you about using Keyboard Maestro and drafts together. So I'm going to shift over to Keyboard Maestro. And in my global macro group, I'm going to make a Thanksgiving dinner macro. And the job of this macro is basically going to be to fill in some of the variables on this checklist for me. And really that one variable is Thanksgiving dinner, the date of Thanksgiving dinner. But then I'm going to have it pull that information pull my checklist out of drafts, put that date into the checklist, and then put my updated checklist into OmniFocus. So the first thing we're going to do is I like to use groups just to provide some structure. So this group is going to be about, and I'll rename it get date. And I'm going to use in OmniFocus, in draft, using these words interchangeably, I'm going to use the Keyboard Maestro feature of prompt user for input. So I'm going to drop that in that action, and I'm going to say when is Thanksgiving. Well, this is going to be the name of the window, so let me move that question down here, and I'm going to say Thanksgiving. So the question is going to be when is Thanksgiving, and my variable name is going to be T-day. And this is going to be a date. So I'm going to be asked sorry, you can't see that little prompt there because of the window I'm showing. But all this date's going to do is going to show me a little pop-up box that says a title with Thanksgiving. Then it asks a question that says when is Thanksgiving, and then it's going to give me a little type box that I can type in a date for. So that's going to be the date. This, I'm not quite sure what that is. That's just a pre-filled text, some type of encoded date, but on the window that I see, it's a very conventional like year, month, day, or no, it's a month, day, year, little choose date picker type box that you're very familiar with. So that is just going to set the variable, which is great. Now I'm going to cheat for a second, and I'm going to go to a macro that I've shared before for my videos. My last video was I was showing you how I automate my YouTube videos. So I am going to select this macro, which says pull OmniFocus template from drafts. And the next one, so I'm going to hit the shift button, and I'm going to click down here too, so both of these boxes are highlighted, that say create OmniFocus project for video. I'm not doing a video, I can replace these, but I'll explain them over here. So let me go back to my Thanksgiving dinner, and I'll paste those items in here, and we'll come back to it. So I'm going to get the date, and then I'm going to open up a draft, and then this is going to select the contents of the draft and save it to a named clipboard that I have inside of Keyboard Maestro called TaskPaper template text. So this just gets filled. This is just a holding place for me to do exactly what I'm trying to show you right now, which is this system, these two macros, these two little groups, the pull OmniFocus template from drafts and create OmniFocus project for, let me rename that for create OmniFocus project for Thanksgiving. This gets the information out of drafts for me, my checklist, which, if you remember, has the URL right here. So I'm going to copy that, and let me go back to Keyboard Maestro, and I'm going to paste that URL into here. So it's going to open the URL, it's going to copy the information out of it, and it's going to save it to a TaskPaper template in Keyboard Maestro, a TaskPaper template text clipboard. Then it's going to open OmniFocus. It's going to open a specific folder, and I got to update this because my projects, I have a birthdays/holidays folder, so I'm going to copy a link to that. Let me go back to Keyboard Maestro. I'm going to paste into here. And for some reason, whenever I copy an OmniFocus, it adds like a line break after, and it looks like nothing pasted, but if I just hit the backspace, then that's the link to the folder that I want. And then what this little action does, somebody on the Keyboard Maestro forums helped me understand this. So it will go through the named clipboard, which is TaskPaper template text, and the process tokens thing, that's what's going to take my T-day variable, the date that I put in here, and it's going to make it an actual date, and it's going to put it into my clipboard. So named, it's going to like replace it so that my variable that I picked in Keyboard Maestro gets put into my template that I'm about to paste into OmniFocus. And that's what this text does. Because I open OmniFocus, I go to my folder in OmniFocus for holiday stuff, it basically cleans up the clipboard and then pastes that clipboard correctly into OmniFocus for me. So what Keyboard Maestro is going to do for me, again, is get the date. It's going to ask me for the date, and then it's going to go ahead and pull my checklist and put everything in there that it needs to. Now, what I'm also going to do before I run this is I'm going to select to trigger this by URL, and I'm going to use this, the one that uses a UUID, and I'm going to go back to drafts, and again, I'm going to put the URL in the notes. Again, this is going to end up in OmniFocus, but here is my, basically at the end of my project, again, I'm going to update my draft. And because I'm using the UUID, like nothing's going to change. This link will always stay the same. So I can click on that and I'll update my update my checklist in drafts. And then at the end, when I go to run this Keyboard Maestro macro, it's going to pull from the updated list. I don't have to update the checklist, I don't have to update my macro. It's going to pull from the correct area and it's going to give me the updated checklist. So this little addition is something I just did within the past like 6 months or so. And being able to keep my checklists in drafts and have Keyboard Maestro pull from drafts and then still put in variables for me is super powerful. I used to do this by like just keeping everything in drafts and then copying and pasting it into a text block in Keyboard Maestro, and I'd manually have to keep the two different sources in sync. But now this little trick, this little process with tokens trick, which is in here, this thing, huge game saver, time saver, game changer for me. So I'm going to run it and we'll see if it works. So I'm going to hit run. And again, you can't see this little prompt box that comes up. Actually, you can, because let me switch to the entire screen. So there we go. So you can see OmniFocus over here in the corner, Keyboard Maestro in the other top corner, and then drafts in the bottom. So the date for next Thanksgiving is 11/24/2022. So if I hit OK, Keyboard Maestro should do everything it's supposed to do. Let's see if it works. Okay, so that date is a little bit off. And I think I know why. Because right now, I don't think I'm going to be around when that happens. But let's look to make sure that everything else worked correctly. So it's defer dates are all off, but yeah, it put the tags in that I wanted to have in there. The dates, again, because the dates are messed up, I'm not sure if that worked, but we definitely got a good first version where these are complete with last action, all that stuff worked out the way it was supposed to. So let's delete that and let's go back into Keyboard Maestro, because that is going to be this date feature is the thing we're going to need to fix. So I've actually never used this date before, this little prompt here. Must be new. Maybe it's new in Keyboard Maestro 10. But the Thanksgiving Day feature, so I can switch this back to text, and then I can put in my date the way I want it to, or I can put in my preferred date format as the default date. So to do that, in Keyboard Maestro, they have this really handy, something I use all the time under the help window, is the ICU date reference format. So let me show you my Safari. So I like year, month, day as the date formatting. So this gives you all of like the specific, like what each one of these, like singles, doubles, like what all that stuff changes and does. But so what I want, again, doing this live on air, so I'm with the new version of Keyboard Maestro, because usually what that format would do would just give me the format that I already use, but that's new. So this is super helpful for like solving problems if you realize that you have a problem with your like the formatting of your dates. But in true fashion for myself, normally if I run into a problem like this that I need to fix, I will look at an old macro of mine that has the information in there that I need. So the format that I like to use would be found in the next day and date, and it's this ICU date time format with that appropriate capitalization. So let me come back to my macro, and let me come back to Thanksgiving dinner. And so what I'll do is I'll just put today's date in there as a prompt for me, as like a format to remind me how I need to provide the date. So let's see if that works. Let me go back to sharing my whole screen. We'll open up Keyboard, open up Drafts again. Not Drafts, OmniFocus again. And then show the whole screen. So again, next year is 2022, and it's 11, and it's 24. So now let's see if this works. I'll get that out of the way. Hit OK. And there we go. See, it worked appropriately that time. It was just that new date feature didn't work for me. And this is part of the automation, like the puzzle, to solve it, to figure out how it worked or why it didn't work. So if we look at hosting Thanksgiving, again, that's going to be due on the 24th, but it's going to start 3 weeks, 21 days ahead of time, which is on the 3rd, which is excellent. Slide this over here. Let me zoom in so you can see it better. My shopping list starts on the same day, but it's due on the 23rd. My turkeys, however, are going to be due on the 16th, so I need to buy my turkeys on the 16th or earlier, or else there's going to be trouble. So the salt and everything else just says, over here you can see it says deferred with container, so that's when everything else is just due, is on that same day. So this is due the day before Thanksgiving, and it starts 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. Preparing the turkeys, I got to thaw the turkeys. That is due on the 16th. So you can see all of my dates worked. And then if I scroll down to the bottom, there is update Thanksgiving dinner checklist in drafts, and my note is right there to the correct thing, and run automation for next Thanksgiving is right there as well. So it's a Keyboard Maestro trigger. So that process created some action groups. It created some sub-nested action groups inside of it as well. Frustratingly, even though I said open this folder, it still pastes the project at the root level, and that has been that way since I've been using Drafts and Keyboard Maestro and OmniFocus like this for years. And I've asked before, and I don't think there's a solution. So I'm just gonna drag that down in there and put it in my holiday birthday folder. And that's that. So I hope that helped you see like my process for creating things. I really like Drafts for doing the messy work, for moving things around and for storing that information, as much because it's easy to work with Drafts, and because there's the OmniFocus TaskPaper action group that helps you make it real easy to do that. But also the linking, being able to have an OmniFocus task that in the notes has a link to the draft, and being able just to make that super seamless to go from one application to the other makes Drafts ideal for me to store this information. And then again, just like 6 months ago, using that trick of copying things from drafts to a named clipboard in Keyboard Maestro, and then processing the tokens, and then pasting that information into OmniFocus has been a huge time saver to keep that information in sync for me. Sometimes little issues come up, like my date formatting didn't work correctly the first time. It was hosting Thanksgiving in a few thousand years, which is optimistic, but the process of fixing that just took a moment. I used some previous work to fix that, and this process was very obviously Thanksgiving specific and specific to me and how I cook my turkeys and what I need to do that and all that stuff. But hopefully you can see that using these three apps in conjunction with each other can make things really helpful no matter what type of recurring project that you're doing. There are built-in repeat methods for certain projects or in OmniFocus that might work for certain projects if you're going to do something every week, like taking out the trash cans or cutting the grass, like things like that are regular, normal, repeating patterns. I don't use this process, but if there's a custom project that's, Thanksgiving is a floating date that's different every year, then this can be super helpful. Or if you have a specific target that you want to hit for work, like I need to finish this project, on this specific date because the client needs it by then if you have like this whole checklist set up with all your dates already, the project well enough, then it's super easy to set the system up and say, all right, well, the client needs it on October 15th. So boom, I still put in the date that I need that project completed by, and then all of my other work just drops into place and all the dates are calculated for me, and I'm good to go. And you get better every time you do those types of projects. You expand your checklist and you get better and better. And I think it's a super helpful way to work. This whole thing was inspired years ago by me reading the Checklist Manifesto, which is an incredible book. You might think, well, I know Thanksgiving's coming. I know all the stuff that I need to do. But the book, The Checklist Manifesto by Atul Gawande, is an extraordinary collection of evidence to say that, pretty much no matter how smart you are, you're going to be better if you use a checklist. No matter how many times you've done a certain project, you're probably going to be better if you use a checklist. So this is super helpful for me. I've embraced it and enjoyed it, benefited from it. I've wanted to do this Thanksgiving one for the past couple of years, but then by the time I got around to it, Thanksgiving was too much time had elapsed that I might not have all the information in place. So this is just 3 or 4 days after Thanksgiving for me, and so this was a super helpful process that I was going to do. I live streamed it to you all today as another little extension, a little thing for me to try and get better at. If you were watching this, I greatly appreciate it. I've been using Ecamm Live to interact with the YouTube live stream to host and do all this process. I've never used the live streaming features before, so if you've been saying anything, dropping anything or anything like that, I apologize. Nothing has come through on my end, but I am interested in hearing from everybody in the comments down below this video. If you watch the recording and you like this longer form content, maybe not an hour every time, but if you like to see a little bit more of me doing work rather than the more polished, rehearsed videos that I've been producing, I'm happy to do some more of this type of content, not jumping ship from one type of content to the other. But this was just a nice little experiment for me to try a new form of content creation, and I would love to hear from you if you liked it. Or if you didn't like it, either way, I'd love to hear the feedback, because again, this is a new thing and I'm always interested in updating my work and how I do things and trying to do better next time. So I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below in this video. Otherwise, I hope it was helpful to you. You can find me obviously on this channel, but if you're interested in following me elsewhere, themikeburke.com is my website, and then if you go to themikeburke.com/links, you'll find links to my the YouTube channel that you're probably already on right now, but also my Twitter and LinkedIn and my blog if you want to see other content that I've produced. But I appreciate you taking the time to watch me work through my checklist, and I hope it helped you, and I hope I'll see you next time. Have a good one.